everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I wanted to come on and share a process video with you guys on how I made this Christmas family portrait scrapbook layout. I made a New Year's resolution this year that I would try to create at least one scrapbook layout every month. So far so good. This is my third scrapbook layout and it's just the early part of February. And I decided I was going to scrap this family portrait of me, my hubby, and our two pups that we took on Christmas morning. I used most of the papers from this old Recollections Christmas paper pack. It's called Watercolors and it's back from 2013. It's an old paper pack, but the colors in it were perfect for the actual picture that I wanted to scrap. So it worked out great. I also got to use some vintage buttons, some old thickers or chipboard alphas, and just did some tearing, some distressing. I added some embroidery thread just for some added texture. And this isn't a Diamond Dye's design team project, but I will say I think these black snowflakes that I added as accents really added a lot to this layout. And I used the snowflakes die set. This was one of the first die sets made by Diamond Dyes. Also Snowflakes #1, which I think is so beautiful, right? This is the one over here cut out. And then also the Icy Snowflakes die set. And I'll put a link in the description box below to Diamond Dyes. And if you make a purchase there and use the coupon code Thanks Christina, you'll get 10% off your entire order of $35 or more and free worldwide shipping. So I'm starting off with a 12 by 12 citron green piece of cardstock, and I'm using an X-Acto blade to cut out the center part of this cardstock so that I can reuse that cardstock for more matting on the layout. And it's just a little trick to get more use out of cardstock that you wouldn't see anyway. Now I'm taking a bell pattern paper and I'm just going to cut off 1/2 inch off of two sides so that this piece of cardstock has that green border all the way around. That's about 1/4 inch around. And this is the picture that I'm going to be scrapbooking. And I'm just matting it with some white cardstock and then matting it with some more green and crimson and white striped pattern paper, also from the same Christmas holiday paper pad. I love that I got a chance to use this paper pad that I've been just having in my stash for so long. And now I'm going to just use my ATG gun to put some adhesive on that background piece and position it in place so that that is the background of the scrapbook page. Now I'm trying to figure out how to get some more contrast. And there's this paper that says Jingle All the Way. And you won't be able to read most of it, but I wanted to have a kind of crimson background that would just be another layering piece around this photo. And because the text is relatively small, it is a good size contrast in terms of pattern size to the bell pattern in the background. That's one of the things that I try to keep in mind when I'm building scrapbook layouts is that when I'm mixing lots of different patterns, I try to keep the color story relatively simple, which is easy to do because paper pads usually come with one color story. And then I try to mix up the sizes of the patterns. Now I'm going to take another layering piece. This was cut from the center piece of that border citron green cardstock, and that's going to give me like a 1/8 inch border all around this photo. And I'm liking all of that matting. And then I decide I'm going to have a little bit of a vintage feel. I'm going to futz with this for a while, but basically I've torn some music paper and I have scrunched it all up, crinkled it up. And now I'm going to take some fun foam scraps. These circles were from another project. They were just scraps left over. And I'm going to take some Aleene's original tacky glue and glue those on the back of this music paper. And that will give this background music paper a nice lift from the scrapbook layout background. There's also a little scrap of a yellow heart too. I just keep all those fun foam scraps to add layering dimension. And now I'm going to take some Tim Holtz Distress ink in Vintage Photo and distress the edges of this music paper. And this paper is actually really old, so it's falling apart, but I actually like that distressed look. And I like just being able to add a little bit of that vintage feel or that primitive feel to a layout that would otherwise be really modern. I like mixing the vintage and the modern patterns, and I think it adds some interest to this layout. Now I'm going to just use my ATG gun and place that photo on top of that music note paper, and I have hand fussy cut out these bells that are much bigger. It was on another pattern piece of paper from that paper collection. And you see me kind of filling in a gap right there. I just tore up a little bit more of that music paper, and I'm going to distress the edges again and tuck that in under where the bell would be. Because of the distressed nature of this music paper, it's okay that I'm using these little pieces to make up what will generally appear to be one big piece of matting. Now I'm back to the big bells, and I want to have that bell up on the same level as the photo. So I'm using some double-sided foam adhesive, and I'm layering 2 pieces of that 3M double-sided foam adhesive so that it is popped up enough. I'm also going to make sure that I have the bow part of these ornaments with the 2 layers of the double-sided foam adhesive as well. This will make sure that the entire ornament is well supported and is on that same level as the photo. I'm taking off all the release paper, and I'm going to put it right there in the upper left-hand corner of the photo. And you see me just put in a little bit of the ATG tape under the part that actually is flush with the photo. There are a few other pieces of kind of cut aparts that I took from one of the sheets of that paper collection. And again, I am putting 2 layers of the double-sided foam adhesive and then a little strip of the ATG tape, and that will bring it up to being level with the photo again. Here's another big jingle bell, and I'm going to place that right on the lower right-hand section of the photo. Now here I've put a piece of fun foam. It was actually a circle, and I doubled it up so I could get extra thickness. And I'm just using more of that Aleene's Original Tacky Glue. And I'm putting some ATG tape on the top part of the little bell ornament so that it will be adhered to the photo corner and then get some of that dimension and layering with the fun foam. I'm also cutting a couple of strips of double-sided foam adhesive to reinforce and support the bow at the top of that bell ornament so that that doesn't kind of collapse. I also noticed that my little fun foam piece didn't cover the lower part of that bell ornament, so I'm putting 2 pieces of fun foam stacked there as well. I just want everything to kind of have a solid support. I also decided to do a yellow bell in that upper right-hand corner because I like keeping things in odd numbers. And I fussy cut that out of a piece of pattern paper from the paper collection. But as you can see, it came from a piece that didn't have the full bell ornament. It has a kind of cutout, so I'm putting it up in the upper right-hand corner, and I can cut away the excess at the top there. And you'd never know that that was not a full image of the bell ornament. Now I've decided that the music paper and the busy ornament background paper are really too busy and not contrasting enough to make it pop, like all that matting. So I decided I'm going to tear some black cardstock to have that tucked underneath between the bell pattern paper and the music note paper. And I think that will help that whole photo assembly kind of pop more from this scrapbook layout. And I'm fiddling with this for a long time, but you basically get the idea. I actually don't like how this is going to result in various separate pieces of the torn black cardstock. So I'm doing a piece that will turn the corner in that lower left-hand side. I've torn the left side of this cardstock piece and the bottom part. And now I'm just trying to cut it down so that it fits with just a little bit of a black border behind that music paper. I don't want that black border piece to be too thick because I just wanted it as a little bit of an accent to help the pattern papers behind it and in front of it kind of pop. And if it's too thick, I think it could dominate this page. So I am trying to make sure that I tuck it in far enough so that there's just kind of a little thin border, about anywhere between 1/8 of an inch to almost 1/3 of an inch. And here you see me just trying to cut away the little bit of excess above the ribbon of the red bell ornament. And I'm going to fiddle with this for a while longer. I just wanted to make it a little bit thinner right there, as you see, and it's really forgiving because it's just being torn. I just want to make sure that it is a natural torn look. And now I'll just tack down a few of the areas with my wet glue. This is an art glitter glue with a fine tip nozzle. So I'm going to do the same process in the upper right-hand corner of the photo mat assembly. I'm tearing the top and the right-hand side of some black cardstock, cutting it away just enough so that I know it will clear the right top corner. And I'm positioning it and then just tacking it down with some more of that art glitter glue. Now I wanted a little bit of more interest and texture, so I'm taking some DMC metallic gold embroidery thread, and I'm tucking it in between the music note paper and that black cardstock, and I think it shows up quite nicely, at least over the black cardstock areas, and just bunching it up and trying to make sure that it kind of goes over the black areas enough to be visible and not look totally planned. I futz with this a lot, but you see me just tacking it down with some invisible tape behind the music note paper. And I'm just fiddling and futzing with it to kind of spread it out so that it looks more naturally bunched up. I decided, because there's so many patterns and the background is so busy, I was just going to go with black chipboard alphas. These are from Fancy Pants Designs, and the adhesive on these is not great. I don't know if it's because the letters are old or because they were never great. I'm not sure, but it's not a big deal. I just want to get the positioning right. So I'm actually using a notebook little pocket sleeve. It's for, putting in pencils and stuff, but it's great because I can position it and it's clear so I can see how the letters would fit anywhere on my layout. So I'm moving it around. I think I'm going to just have it above that whole matted area for the photo, and I'm going to start laying these out and gluing them on with more art glitter glue. I think using that piece of acetate or plastic to find the positioning of thickers or chipboard letters like this is the best tip I ever learned. I think I learned that a couple of years ago watching Oh Snap Gonzo. Now you'll see I pulled off the O, and I'm going to use some vintage buttons just to add a little extra fun. And so I'm swapping out the O with a big black button, and then I'm going to put a rhinestone button on top of that so that the center, looks like a hollow letter like the O. And I'm using E6000 glue, which takes a while to set, but once it's set, it's permanent. Now, I felt like I needed more black in this layout just to kind of ground it and keep the continuity of the black torn border as well as the chipboard letters. So I'm sprinkling around some black and then occasionally some cream color or pearl color buttons. I thought these buttons were a good alternative to paint splatter or sequins or something like that. And I have so many vintage buttons. This was really fun to add all around. And this is a peek at just me snapping off the button shank with a metal wire cutter. And I'm using a little button that's actually a cream colored poinsettia there at the top of that tag. Now, this is a detail that most people wouldn't be annoyed by, but these bell ornaments, these big bell ornaments that I fussy cut out, have a loop at the top, and I did not use an X-Acto knife to cut them out. So what I'm doing is I'm adding some little smaller bell ornaments that I fussy cut out from a different cut apart page, and I'm adding a thin pop dot behind it and some wet glue at the top of it so that it has dimension on the lower part of that tiny ornament, but looks adhered to that bow. And I'm using my bone folder just as a place to kind of support it while the wet glue sets up And I'm using a green one for the green bow and a little red one for the red bow. And I think that little detail, even though I'm probably the only one that notices it, adds a lot for me for this layout. And then lastly, just to add a little bit of shimmer, I'm using clear Wink of Stella on the little tiny ornaments, and I also put them on the bows, so there's a little shimmer to that. Next, while this is not a Diamond Dyes design team project, I did decide that to carry through the winter theme, I would use my Diamond Dyes snowflake dies. I'm using Snowflake Set, Snowflake number 1, and Icy Snowflakes. And I've cut all these snowflakes out of black cardstock, a little twist from the typical white cardstock snowflakes. Oh, and I just showed you the Martha Stewart Himalayan punch. That's a big snowflake as well, and I'm tucking that one right there at the lower part of the photo assembly. And I'm just using more wet glitter glue and placing these snowflakes around strategically so that they kind of just are pleasing to the eye, tucked around the matting, some on top, some on below. As you can see, there's one additional big ornament fussy cut out there, and that's because I accidentally smeared glue and got stuff stuck to the background here, and I couldn't get it off without scraping off the image of this background paper. So I covered up the little boo-boo with that extra ornament. It's not my fave because I normally like things in odd numbers, and it was perfectly with a 3 and a little triangle here, but it's better than leaving a scuffed up background, right? Anyway, it's all in good fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this process video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for watching.